We're good, I think. Bear with me for 1 second to make sure everything is good. All right. So, five mistakes that we're going to talk about that I see parents making all the time so that you can avoid them. And again, ask me questions in the comments. If you're watching the replay, I'm happy to pop back into the comments and answer questions. So, mistake number one that I see parents making is kind of having unrealistic expectations. So this is what a kind of a scenario that I have seen happen is that you're on Facebook or YouTube or wherever and you see, or Instagram, and you see a video of a baby signing milk and the caption or whatever says, 5-month-old signing. And so you're like, wow, that's incredible. And it is incredible. I've had students of mine have their baby sign milk at 5 months old or 6 months old. Incredible. So then you're like, well, my baby's 4 months old. I'm going to teach them how to sign. And so you start signing. Every time you feed your baby, you sign milk. To sign milk, you just open and close your hand like you're milking a cow, which as a, pumping or breastfeeding mom is not super flattering, but there you go. And you do that for a few weeks or a month and your baby doesn't sign back. And then you say, this stinks. This doesn't work. And you quit because what you saw or expected to see happen based on something you saw on social media didn't happen with you. And so the reality is that most babies start signing if you start signing with them, they start signing back in the 8 to 12 month range with 10 months being about average. So while it is possible for a baby to sign at 5 months or 6 months, it's the exception. Like all child development, all those milestones, there's always a range. And so it's really important to keep that in mind. So just because one baby started walking at 8 months or 9 months doesn't mean that all babies do, right? And some babies take their first steps when they're 17 months. So there's a wide range. So just keep that in mind. And if you go into it with the expectations that your baby's going to sign back after you've signed to them for a week and they're 4, 5, 6 months old, you're going to get frustrated and disappointed. So keep that in mind. 8 to 12 months is when you can realistically start, expecting your baby to sign back. They might sign back earlier. Awesome, right? That's very cool. But it's more the outlier. So just keep that in mind. And some babies start signing right after, say they celebrate their first birthday. And what happens then is you see this huge explosion. So some babies it might not click for them, or they might start signing back till they're 12 months or 13 months. But then that baby has 10 signs within the first couple weeks of signing. So they all kind of catch up and level off at the same point. Just keep that in mind. So that was mistake number one, is kind of having unrealistic expectations and then getting frustrated and quitting, which I don't want to see happen for you. The second mistake that I see parents making is kind of focusing and picking the wrong signs. And I talk about this a lot in my book. I didn't even really introduce myself beyond saying that I was in my basement. I'm Lane. I'm the author of Baby Sign Language Made Easy, which is this book, which is a great book for beginners. And then also Baby Sign Language, the complete guide to Baby Sign Language, which is kind of has a more advanced vocabulary for kind of older toddlers. And top secret, probably not supposed to say this, but I'm actually working on a third book that I am so excited about, but it's not coming out till early next year. And it's a children's book. And I think the most excited about this book. It's going to be so cute. So I've been teaching baby sign language through my program Tiny Signs since just over 10 years. I started signing with my baby when she was 6 or 7 months old. She's now 14 and a half. So I've been doing this for a long time. I've helped, tens of thousands of families teach their babies to sign. And I also do a lot of work with educators and speech therapists and so forth. So all these years of experience, I've kind of picked up and seen some patterns and things, stumbling blocks that people tend to hit. So that's what we're talking about today. So that was mistake number one. Mistake number two, which I see often, is as parents, we go into this early communication and baby sign language focused on what our thoughts are around our babies. And as parents, new parents, we're focused on our baby's, food intake, when their sleep schedule, right? Sleep is like the biggest thing that I know as a new parent. I was obsessed with my kids' sleep and nap schedules and everything like that. So these are the things that are important to us. And so when we pick signs, we naturally, as parents, pick signs around those things. So we tend to focus on things like more and eat and sleep and diaper and things that kind of revolve around our kids' routines. And those signs can be really helpful and useful. One of the things that's great about those signs is that, your baby sleeps and eats and gets a diaper change over and over multiple times throughout the day. So that vocabulary gives you lots of opportunity to use them again and again throughout the day. But it's a mistake to only use those signs and only focus on those kind of functional, I call them useful signs, and ignore playful signs, which are signs that are kind of based on your baby's interests and things that are really motivating to your baby. And with my own children and with the many students and families I've worked with over the years, parents who focus on their baby's interests when they're introducing sign language tend to get results faster. So, for example, both of my children, one of their first signs was light, because if you look at the world from a baby's perspective, lights are fascinating, right? You're laying on the floor on a blanket or a ceiling fan. Fan is another good one. So, or cat or dog or fish if you have a big fish tank. Kind of things that catch your baby's eye and are of high interest to your baby. I'm just going to pop in here and see if there's anything going on. All right, I got folks watching and no comments yet. All right, cool. Or questions yet. Okay. So focusing on your baby's interests and things that are of high interest and motivating to them, you'll get results quicker. And a way to figure this out is to, observe your baby, really kind of put yourself in your baby's shoes. I even tell my students, lay down. If your baby's laying on the floor, lay down on the floor with them and kind of put yourself in their little shoes and look at the world from their point of view. Look at what catches their eye. Look at the world from their vantage point and see what might be interesting. So it might be that you have a big ceiling fan that your baby loves to look at, or they might be looking at the lights. They might be looking at the cat every time the cat walks through the room. So kind of pick a few signs based on your baby's interests, and you'll get much faster results. And then you can integrate all those really useful signs like, diaper, and we as parents, we want our babies to sign please and thank you and those sorts of things. Those things will come, but I wouldn't start there. So that's my second piece of advice or a mistake to avoid, is focus on both useful and playful signs. I hope that makes sense. And mistake number 3, I would call this mistake underestimating baby, or kind of setting a low bar for yourself as far as your ability to teach your baby. So what I see happen is parents go into this thinking, I just want to teach my baby a few signs. So, a parent comes in there, I just want to teach them more and all done and milk, and that's good. And teaching your baby and getting your baby to be able to communicate those things with you is super helpful. Don't get me wrong. Like, I highly encourage you to do that. But there's this adage, I don't know if you've heard it before, that goes something along the lines of, if all you have is a hammer, everything looks like a nail. And what I see happen is that the parents who only teach their baby the sign for more, their baby just signs more all the time, and it ends up just causing as much frustration as if your baby was just grunting and pointing all the time, because that's the only tool you've given your child, is how to sign for more. So they're going to do it all day long, and it's not really going to ultimately be that helpful, because you're like, more what? More this, more book, more milk, more tickles, whatever, more singing. So the mistake is kind of not teaching your baby enough signs, and the solution is teach your baby more. Keep building that vocabulary, because honestly, once you get the ball rolling, getting started and getting to that first time your baby signs back to you is kind of like the hardest part. building from there, adding more signs, it's easy and it's fun. You can just kind of learn along with your baby. You don't have to necessarily become fluent or know, hundreds and hundreds of signs. You just have to know one or two more than your baby does. So, just kind of keep pace with them. You can learn together. Just try to stay one step ahead of them and keep building so that instead of signing more all the time, your baby can sign cracker and ball and dog and bunny and yogurt or whatever the things are that your baby wants to talk to you about. So they're not just signing more all the time, and causing kind of that frustration that you're trying to avoid in the first place. So that's mistake number 3. Let's see. I'm talking really fast. I tend to do that. Mistake number 4. Oh gosh, this is a big one. Is missing baby's first sign. And I see this happen all the time. And the important thing to keep in mind and remember is that baby's early signs don't look like ours, right? Because we have, we can make these fancy hand shapes that you might need to use in American Sign Language, and your baby can basically have an open hand, a closed hand, and maybe point, depending on their age and development. So they're not gonna sign "I love you" like this, right? Like we do. They might just wave at you, like with my babies, I always, whenever I signed "I love you," which is like this, you put your pinky and your pointer and your thumb up. That's the ASL alphabet for I, L, and Y for I love you. And you combine them all, that's I love you. So I would do this and I would shake it. I'd say, love you. And both of them did this to me. That was their way of saying I love you back with just a pointer, because they didn't have the fine motor skills to isolate those fingers. So, but early on, it can really cause confusion. I was just thinking earlier today about this situation. I was teaching a mommy and me type class in Boston. I'm in Massachusetts. It was a Saturday morning. And mommy and me type class, everyone's sitting in a circle on the floor. We're in the basement of this children's clothing store in the South End. And people were still coming in. I was sitting on the floor, and a couple of the parents who had showed up early were sitting, and we were chit-chatting. And a mom was sitting facing me, her baby kind of propped between her legs, and she was saying to me, I keep trying to get her to sign water. I've been trying to teach her the sign for water, and she just won't do it. Now the baby's facing me with her back to her mom, and the minute the mom said water, the baby went and put her finger in her mouth. I'm not going to do that right now, but basically put her finger in her lips. And I said, she just did sign water as soon as you said it. So water, the sign for water, you make a W. So you hold your pinky down with your thumb and make a W shape, and you tap that at your chin like this. That's a sign for water. Well, your 12-month-old, your 8-month-old, your 14-month-old isn't going to isolate 3 fingers like this. So they might do this. They might just put their finger in their mouth. They might tap their whole hand at their mouth. So you have to kind of keep that in mind so you're not looking for them to do it just like you. I actually made this mistake with my first child before I knew everything I've learned over the past 14 years. I had taught her the sign for eat. And to sign eat, you put all your fingertips at your thumb and just tap them at your mouth. It's the sign for eat or food. And I had been teaching her the sign for eat by every time I put her in the high chair and she was having food, I would sign eat. And then she started patting her ear with her open hand, within the week after I introduced that sign. And I didn't realize that was her version of eat. It took me a couple days to realize. I actually thought maybe she had an ear infection. So it wasn't until I said, you want to eat? And she was like, rah! I was like, oh, she's signing eat, but her version just doesn't look the way I expected it to. So this is a common mistake. It's easy to make. The way to avoid it is you want to once you start introducing sign language, keep in mind your baby's limited choices for hand shapes. You're just going to look for repetitive movement or purposeful movement. So if your baby puts their finger in their mouth every time there's a water bottle in sight, or you offer them water, or you're drinking water, or the dog's drinking water, and you've been teaching them the sign for water, right? Modeling it for them. That's their sign for water. So, and there's so many more examples of we call those approximations, basically early baby versions of signs. You kind of, I mean, at this point I've seen, I think, every possible variation or approximation of the most common signs. So for example, another one that's common, the sign for more, you touch all your fingers to your thumbs. You've probably seen this one already, and you tap it in front of you. This hand shape is called the flat O. It's like you make an O and then squish it down. It's the same hand shape that you use for eat. So you tap your hands in front of you for more. And, you know, my first daughter clapped to sign more. I've seen babies bang their fists together to sign more. I've seen babies point to their open palm to sign more. All of them are fine versions. You don't have to fix them. You don't have to take their hands. You just say, that's right, more. And you just, you know, continue modeling it the right way. And as their skills develop, they will do it better. And you'll say, oh, remember when she used to sign more like this? Now she does it like this, but it was so cute when she did it like that. You know, don't worry about fixing it. It's like anything that they do early on. You'll someday look back and miss the early way they did it. So don't rush them or try to fix it. Just acknowledge it and continue modeling it the right way. Just like with speech, really. Okay, that was mistake number 4. Mistake number 5. I would call this one listening to bad advice. I've seen, unfortunately, groups like this are fantastic because there's such a, I mean, I wish when I was a brand new mom, I'm going to age myself, but I said my daughter's 14 and a half. There were not Facebook groups like this where you had this huge community of people sharing incredible and, you know, invaluable advice and experience and say, yeah, that happened to me, or my daughter did that, and it makes you feel bad. I wish I had had that. The other piece is that sometimes people share advice that's not great. And so you have to kind of weed through that a little bit when you're getting advice on this. So, you know, I've seen in groups and in parents talking, saying things like, you know, if your baby does a sign wrong, fix it. You know, take their hands and correct it. You know, if they're signing like this, pull their fingers up, and like, that's bad advice. You know, I don't recommend doing that. It can really create a negative association with signing with your baby. Some other bad advice I've seen people give is withholding food to motivate a baby to sign more. I mean, it's okay to pause to create that conversational, like if you say, do you want more? And then pause a moment to give your baby a chance to say yes, more. But you don't want to, you know, you're not training a pet. You don't want to like withhold food or do anything that's like super coercive. You know, this is just a tool, and it's conversational, and it's should be supportive and fun for you and your child. So, you know, just kind of take advice with a grain of salt, and make sure you're, you know, getting advice from people with a child development background and experience with this, because just because one person taught their baby to sign more does not necessarily mean that they should be the person you get all your advice from. So I guess that's my nice way to say that. And that was mistake number 5, but I actually have a bonus one, a bonus 6 mistake. Because this one I've seen more recently, and I totally understand how this happens. It makes a lot of sense to me. You hear a lot when you hear about baby signing that it's great for reducing frustration. Like, one of the greatest benefits is that it can reduce that frustration that comes, because any of you that have like a 14-month-old or 15-month-old who knows what they want, but can't tell you, and that's where, you know, that kind of toddler tantrum comes from, is that frustration around inability to communicate, because babies understand, you know, months before they're able to speak, and there's that lag between their understanding and their, you know, receptive communication and their expressive communication. So I say that to say that what happens is I've seen parents who've heard this, oh, signing helps with frustration. It can reduce frustration. And what I see parents do, and I'm like, oh, I can see why they did that, is they start introducing sign language at times when their baby is frustrated, right? So they're like, oh, well, signing reduces frustration. My baby's pitching a fit. I'm going to teach them how to say all done, right? To sign all done, you open your hands up with your palm towards your body and you twist them away twice. All done. So they try to like, okay, well, helping, you know, signing helps with frustration. Let me teach my baby some signs when they're frustrated. Makes sense. But the reality is that's a horrible time to introduce sign language to your baby is when they're frustrated and angry. It creates a negative connection with this communication, and they're just, babies can't, none of us, not babies, anybody, when you're having a time, right? If you're frustrated and you're stuck in traffic, it's not a time when you want to learn a new skill, right? We learn best when we're in a position to be relaxed and calm and fed and rested to take in new information. So the best time to introduce sign language to your baby is not when they're frustrated. It's when, like, after they've had a feeding and after a nap, and when you're playing, and it should be fun, and then they're primed to really take in new information. So introduce sign language in a fun and playful way when your baby's rested and receptive, and then they will use it when they're frustrated. So I hope that makes sense. So yes, it's an incredible tool to reduce frustration, both for your baby and for you as a parent. But the time to teach it or introduce something new is not when they're frustrated. So hopefully that makes sense. So that was a bonus mistake. That was actually 6. I had said 5, but that was 6. And I talked really fast, but I only had a little bit of time. So I am going to look and see if there's questions here on my phone here. Folks are watching. Hi, everybody. And I don't see question. The one thing, I showed you a couple signs in here. I'll show you a couple more signs. Oh, Elizabeth says we love signing. We use it with our toddler and even our dogs. That's awesome. I've actually seen a really cool video of a cat that knew sign language, which is crazy. And can't wait to learn more to boost our communications. That's awesome. All right. Okay. Should all the child's caregivers be using the signs, or is it okay if only one person uses them? That's a great question. So, right, in an ideal world, right, everyone would do everything the way we do it because we know best, right? But obviously that's not what happens. So signing can work if just one person is doing it, like if the primary caregiver is doing it. You are the primary teacher of your child. So yeah, it will work if just one person is doing it. If you can get other caregivers on board and show them the signs that you're using and they can use them too, bonus, that's great. But your success isn't dependent on that. That being said, so that's as far as teaching your baby, right? So if you're teaching, every time you feed your baby, you sign milk, right? And then when your mom is taking care of her, or the babysitter's taking care of the baby, they also sign milk. That's fantastic. It will reinforce what you're doing. If they don't, it doesn't undo what you've done, right? It just doesn't support it. So it's kind of neutral. That being said, once your baby starts signing back, it's really important for caregivers to be in the loop and understand what their signs mean, right? Especially because their signs, probably look different. So for example, if your baby is signing, I'm trying to think of one that we haven't, just so I can teach you a new sign. If your baby is signing, I can't think of anything off the top of my head. We'll just go with milk because it's easy. So if your baby is signing milk and then spends time with another caregiver, you want the caregiver to know that when she does this, and it might look like a wave, right? So maybe I've seen babies sign milk like this, that looks like a wave up in the air. I've seen babies put their hand on their chest and it looks like they're scratching their chest, or scratching their arm. They kind of need to anchor that sign on their body because they just, holding out in the air and opening and closing it is a little tricky. So they might look like they're scratching themselves when they're really little. You would want to tell the caregiver that means, like, if you see her doing this, or if you see her doing this, or if you see him doing this, that means he's hungry. That means he wants milk. If your caregiver should want to know that, right? Obviously, if your caregiver doesn't want to know that, probably time to find a different caregiver. But it's important for them to know that so that they can, support your baby's communication. And it's really no different than, early words often sound different. Like, say your baby has a favorite little blanket that's like a giraffe head with a little blanket attached to it. And that's like their lovey, their comfort item. And they call it Affy because they can't say giraffe, right? They call it Affy. So you would tell the daycare when he says, if your toddler says Affy, that means he wants his giraffe, you would tell them that, right? And it's just the same so that they can kind of, you're being like an interpreter. And the same way you would tell any caregiver what this word means this sign means this. So yeah, so hopefully that makes sense. All right. Dana says, my baby is 9 months. What are the best signs to start with? So going back to what I said before, a mix of playful and useful signs. So I'm going to teach you 3 of my favorite useful signs. I've already showed some of them. Actually, I showed all of these. More, you tap it in front. And you can use this, you can use more when you're feeding your baby, obviously, right? If you put some food on the tray and say, did you want more? Put some more broccoli or some sweet potatoes or whatever. More sweet potatoes. Oh, you want some more banana? Here's some more banana. And you can use that sign when you're feeding your baby. But you can also use it in a variety of settings so they don't just think it means food, right? Because a lot of babies that learn the sign for more, they just associate it with food, and then they use it to kind of say that they're hungry. But if you really want them to understand the word, you can use it when you are reading a book and you finish the book and you're like, all done book, and your baby reaches for another board book from the stack. You could say, you want more books, or your baby's in the bathtub and you're splashing the bubbles or whatever, and you can say, you want more bubbles, and whatever, blow bubbles off your hand if you've got some bubbles, and whatever you're doing that is fun, use it in a variety of settings. So more is a great one to use in a variety of settings. Eat is one, like I said before. So more, flat O, hand shape, tap it in front of you. That's more. Eat, flat O, hand shape, tap it at your mouth. This one is a great one to use with solid food. So once your baby starts eating any sort of solid food, introduce the sign for eat. And if your baby hasn't started solids yet, if you've got a really little one, milk is a great one. You just open and close your hand like you're milking a cow. So those are great kind of useful signs that I like to use. All done also is a good one. Open hands, palms towards your body, twist them away twice. All done, all done. And again, like more, you can use the sign for all done in a variety of settings. Change your baby's diaper, all done, and then pick your baby up. Put your baby in the car seat, go where you're going, get to the location as you're unbuckling them. All done, car, pick them up. Baby's in the high chair, finishes eating, you wipe off their face, take the tray away, all done, take them out. So that what you're teaching your baby by using all done in all those settings, or even at the end of a book, all done book, is you're showing your baby this is kind of their way to let them know that it's time to end and transition. So then they'll start using it. One of my favorite stories, I only remember this because I put it as like a thing on Facebook, probably 10 years ago when my daughter was little and my younger one. And I was changing her diaper and I was singing to her and she looked at me and she signed all done because I don't have a very good voice. So they'll use the signs in a variety of ways to kind of let you know they're all done, even if it hurts your feelings a little bit, but yeah, so they learn this means it's a way to transition and let you know that they're all done with something. So they can, pull that out and let you know. So those are useful signs. And then, all these signs that I've mentioned and like over 300 more, I have a free video dictionary on my website. Every sign that's in both of these books, which is well over 300 signs, you'll find a video of me showing you how to do it on my website. So you can just go there and look it up. It's easy peasy. So don't worry about, memorizing it all right now. But I did want to answer the question from Dana. Let's see. Playful signs that I love. Light was one of both of my, I said this before, both my kids love the sign for light. So to sign light, there's actually 2 ways to sign light in ASL. One is like this, where you kind of take your middle finger and your thumb and you flick it away from your chin. That sign means more like light, like illumination. I use this sign for light, which is like literally a light turning on and off. So you kind of bend your hand, so your wrist, I can't see myself, so hopefully I'm in the frame here. Your wrist is kind of towards the ceiling, and picture it's like the rays of light shining down on your head and then turning off. So light on, light off, light, light. And so what happens, so this is the sign for light. When a baby does this, this was both of my daughters, one of their very first and most often used signs. They obviously didn't get this wrist position right, so it looked like they just opened and closed their hands, but they would tend to stick their arm up in the air to kind of mimic what I was doing. So it looked like they were signing milk, but like up high. So that was a really good motivating one for them. And there's a light switch behind me, but you know, if you're walking around the house and you can, you know, sometimes you can let your baby play with the light switch and introduce the sign for light. It's super motivating. Babies love to feel powerful and, you know, play with the light switch and turn the lights on and off. So that's a really great one, highly motivating, really effective, easy to do. We have cats. We have 2 cats. When my babies were little, we had 1 cat. And the sign for cat was one of their favorites early on. If you have a dog, that might be their favorite. To sign cat, you take your pointer and your thumb at your cheek and you kind of pretend like you're pinching like your whiskers and pull them away. Cat. And you can do it with 2 hands or just 1 hand. I always recommend when you're teaching animal signs to throw in the sound effect. So meow, meow, kitty, cat. My first daughter signed cat. It looked like she was kind of like licking her fist. She would sign like this and she'd go, which was her attempt to say kitty. And she was doing that when she was, you know, 11, 12 months old, trying to say kitty. And she'd say, so it was very effective. So cat, light, ball is a great one. You just this hand shape in American Sign Language is called a claw hand shape because it looks like rawr. That's actually the sign for monster. You make this claw hand shape with both hands and you bring it towards each other like the shape of a ball in front of you. That's a great motivating one, ball. The only disclaimer on that one is that the sign for ball and the sign for more can look very similar because they both involve bringing the hands together. So your baby might clap for more and your baby might clap for ball. But you can usually figure it out by the context, right? If your baby's fussy and doing that, they're probably hungry. And if you're at the park and somebody's kicking a soccer ball around and they're doing it, it's ball. So you can usually figure it out by the context. But those are some of my favorite starter signs. Let's see. Any other questions? So those were good signs to start with. But again, it's going to depend, like I said earlier in this, it's going to depend on your environment. If you live next to, trying to think, if you live next to a farm or your next door neighbors are homesteaders with chickens, or if you've got chickens, chicken might be a great sign. So the sign for chicken, you've got your pointer and your thumb in front of your mouth. That's a sign for bird. And for chicken, you can just sign bird, or you can also sign bird and then peck the palm of your opposite hand. Chicken. So if you've got chickens, that might be a great sign. So you have to kind of really look at your environment and pick what's going to be best for you and your family based on what your baby sees and what they're excited about. So, and again, there's hundreds of signs on my site. So you can look up every farm animal, octopus from, there's everything you can think of is on there. So you can go look up signs based on what you think your baby might be interested in. All right. This has already been 35 minutes, so I think I've gone over the time, and I'm talking as fast as I possibly can. But again, the books are there as a resource. Obviously, you can get them on Amazon or places, pretty much any place that books are sold. And I do have an online course. And, looks like you put that. Awesome. I do have an online course. I made a coupon code for the whole month of September. You can get $20 off it with the code BabyFirst in all caps. I don't think it matters if it's in all caps, but BabyFirst is the coupon code for this group through the end of September for $20 off the online course. That's where I kind of go step by step through everything. And I have a private Facebook group just for my students, so I answer questions in there. So it's kind of the only place right now that I'm not teaching live classes that we can troubleshoot and I can answer questions and make videos like this. I go live all the time in the group to kind of answer questions. So I think that's it. Anna Paula says, we use pictures of food to help my daughter to ask for the food she'd like to eat. That's brilliant. Yeah, it's a super effective way. And that way she can, oh, you're welcome for the coupon code. My pleasure. And I have to say, it's so funny. YouTube, I looked, I think YouTube came out the year before my first daughter was born, so like 2006. And I think Baby First was one of the first like baby channels on YouTube. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I so remember like the crayon thing. I mean, I'm sleep deprived new mom with the hat. And when you guys reached out to me to do this, I was like, oh my God, it's the crayon hat thing. I remember that. Oh my God. So I'm so glad that you guys are going so strong and doing so well. I have like somewhat, hallucinogenic memories of the crayon with the hat from my first year of my baby's life. But it was super memorable and very cute. And I think she learned some of her colors that way. So if you're watching the replay, feel free to shoot some questions underneath here and I'll answer them. And yeah, Color Crew. That's Color Crew. Yes, Color Crew. I remember it so well. I think that the version that I saw all those years ago, you guys have upgraded, and it looks very cool and slick. It was very cool. That was very cutting edge then, but I think you guys have redone it and it's very cool. So anyway, I think that's it. Any other questions, let me know. Comments and questions in the comments below, and I'll come back and answer them. You can find hundreds of signs on my site. I've got lots of resources on my website, and if you have a question, I can probably point you to an article on my site that will answer it. So I think that's it. All right, bye guys. Thanks for hanging out with me. Thanks for watching this, and it was nice meeting everybody. Thanks for having me. Bye.